Are you getting ready to travel? Maybe spring break or summer vacation? How can you be sure you have everything you need to keep you and your family safe while on the go? I'm Zoe from Mom Doc Travels, and I'm a board-certified family medicine physician who sees patients of all ages. The number one question I get asked this time of year is, Doctor, what can I take when I'm traveling, especially traveling with kids? Stick with me. I'm going to show you how to create the ultimate travel medicine kit. So before we get started, there are a few things you have to keep in mind when you're preparing to pack your medicines for travel. Number one, where are you going? It's so important to think about the kind of trip you're going to take and what you may have access to while you're on the go. If you're taking a cruise, for example, you may not have access to any major medications. Cruise ships are not known to have a lot of medicines in stock. While there are doctors on board, they do charge a lot of money, and oftentimes it's quite an inconvenience to your trip. However, if you're traveling to Europe, you may find that a lot of prescription medications found here in the US are available over the counter or even free of charge in European countries. If you're planning a mission trip, or maybe you're going backpacking through the jungles of Costa Rica, you may have access to no medications at all, so you're going to want to be prepared. Number two, think about the length of your trip. Are you traveling for just a weekend, or will you be gone for 2 or 3 weeks at a time? The amount of medication you pack is going to need to match the length of the trip that you're taking. Number three, will you have access to medical care wherever you're going? Often those of us now post-COVID have decided to invest in travel insurance because you just never know when you may be ill enough to require medical treatment in a different country. So consider that. If you're traveling without travel insurance, you may want to beef up your medical travel kit so that you really can be prepared in any situation. Some of these things you may have seen in my What's in My Carry-On Bag video, so if you haven't checked that out, I'll leave the link in the description box below. All right, so let's dive into my medicine kit. This is the pouch that I've been using for many, many years when I travel, especially when I travel with my children. I've got 2 kids, and I want to be sure that all of us stay healthy on our trip. It's the worst when you get to your destination and find that you're sick with some sort of ailment. So this medicine pouch I got at TJ Maxx, but you can find similar pouches on Amazon, Ross, or in Marshalls. So don't forget to check your discount stores. I love this pouch because it's mesh, so it does allow a little bit of transparency so I can see what's inside, but it's also quite pliable. I find that the plastic medicine pouches that are often found in stores are just too firm, but if you're traveling with liquids for any reason, maybe you're doing a car trip or traveling on a train and you can take as much liquid as you want, using a plastic container or case is a lot better because it can be wiped down if there's any accidents or spills. So one thing I find most often that patients complain about the most when traveling is sleep cycles get changed. Jet lag, it's a real thing. And so while there are holistic measures to jet lag, sometimes it's just not enough. So don't hesitate to pack with you any medications that may help you get adapted to the new time zone. That could include over-the-counter supplements like melatonin or even a little Benadryl. So Benadryl also comes in handy if you were to have allergies or any sort of allergic reaction. You never know when you might need Benadryl, so that's a good thing to pack in your medicine kit. Don't forget, Benadryl as an antihistamine can be sedating, so some people use that instead of melatonin at bedtime to get good rest while traveling. All right, so another thing we've learned throughout this pandemic is that viruses and bugs and bacterial infections are real, right? Germs are everywhere. So you try to do what you can to prevent illness, but sometimes, no matter what you do, despite your best efforts, someone gets a cold, gets the sniffles. So one thing I always pack in my travel bag is hand sanitizer. Don't forget that they also have this in spray form, so if you find that the alcohol-based liquid sanitizer is too drying to the skin, the spray sanitizers can sometimes be a little bit more gentler on the skin. So another thing that can be really helpful when you're worried about coming down with an upper respiratory infection are cough drops and nose spray. Now, I'm a big fan of nasal saline. I think when you're flying especially, your nasal passages get so dried out. Nose spray is really helpful to kind of help moisturize and lubricate the nasal passages, keep things flushed out. Even if you have allergies, it's good for that too. And if you do get a little tickle in the back of your throat, it's nice to have some cough drops on hand just to help, again, lubricate the throat, give yourself a little bit of relief from an upper respiratory infection. Now, we can't forget about our eyes. You know, airplane travel can be very drying to the eyes, or if you're used to being in a more humid climate and you're going to a drier climate, it may be helpful to pack eye drops, re-wetting drops of some kind. You know, a few months ago, I was out in Colorado, and I'm from the East Coast. We've got lots of humidity in the summertime. but that Colorado air really did a number on my eyes. So I was so glad that I had packed my own lubricating drops. This really helped to keep my eyes from getting dry, from burning, from stinging, and even turning red. And don't forget, it's a great idea to have NSAIDs. NSAID stands for non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Those are your things like naproxen, aka Aleve, or ibuprofen, aka Motrin or Advil. Those medications are great for things like aches and pains, sore muscles, or even headaches. Now, I prefer not to travel with the big bottle. The bulky ones just weigh too much. So I get the individual packets over the counter at any drugstore. This just happens to be Tylenol, and any of these kind of over-the-counter pain relievers can be really helpful. If you get a fever, a headache, any sort of ailment, these really can come in handy in a pinch. I prefer the small packets as opposed to the big bottle because I can take this out, toss it in a day bag, and it doesn't weigh me down, but I always have a little something on hand just in case I need it. All right, let's not forget our skin. Our skin is our largest organ, and so it's really important that we protect it and do what we can. So there are 3 things I always pack when it comes to skin health. Number 1, no matter where you are, if you're gonna be outdoors in a warm weather climate, you've gotta come prepared with sunscreen. This video is not sponsored, but I've loved Sun Bum. It is my absolute favorite. I love that it's reef safe. I love the fact that it smells good, but best of all, it doesn't leave a sticky white residue on your skin like a lot of other zinc-based sunscreens can. So pick your favorite, throw it in your bag. Make sure though that it is under the 3.4 ounces if you're planning to put it in your carry-on. I usually pack a big bottle and throw it in my checked luggage because I don't plan to use it in flight, but this is just something you never want to leave home without. The other thing to keep in mind is you never know where you're going to find some bugs or even some insect bites. And so I always make sure to have on hand some sort of topical steroid cream or ointment. This happens to be a prescription triamcinolone. It's a medium strength steroid ointment. You could also just go over the counter and get hydrocortisone cream, Cordaid 10, or any brand that you prefer. This can really help ease eczema, dry skin patches, or even insect bites that can be really itchy and a nuisance when you're traveling. One other thing to consider when you're thinking about skin is what you might be doing on an excursion. A year ago, I was in Aruba on a big excursion. We were doing some cave diving, and when I came up from the cave, I had a scrape on the side of my ankle and it was bleeding. Thankfully, I had my first aid kit, so I was able to clean up my cut with no problem, but it's always a good idea to have some sort of antiseptic to clean the wound and then liquid Band-Aid. So Liquid Skin, this is the brand you can find over the counter, is a great waterproof Band-Aid sealer. So rather than peeling and sticking a messy Band-Aid on a wound, if it's cleaned out properly, you could cover the wound with a liquid Band-Aid, seal it off, protect it from further infection. All right, here's a pro tip, something that's not often talked about: prescription medications. Many of us would prefer to consolidate prescription medications if we take them to a pill case or a pill container. But depending on where you're traveling, oftentimes foreign countries have requirements that your prescription medication be contained in its original pill bottle. So just check the requirements for wherever your destination is and be sure that you plan accordingly. If you're planning to cruise or even get to a destination and then get on a smaller boat and you're prone to seasickness, you won't want to leave home without C-bands. C-bands work wonderfully by putting pressure on pressure points in the wrist to help mitigate any signs of nausea, dizziness, or even vomiting. So definitely keep this in mind. If you have little ones that you want to kind of go a more natural route, C-bands can be really great. If C-bands aren't strong enough, even for adults, then I'd recommend either Bonine or Dramamine. I love this Dramamine for kids because the tablets are dissolvable. They don't require any water. It's no pill to swallow. It makes it easy for kids. And these dissolving tablets work very quickly to take away any sort of seasickness symptom that your little one may have. All right, let's talk about the gut. So I've saved the best for last. One thing that people don't realize is that 80% of your immune system lives in your gut. So healthy eating while traveling definitely helps to boost your immune system and keep you healthy. But the other thing to keep in mind is sometimes despite your best efforts, you still get a touch of diarrhea, constipation, a little stomach bug. That can be the worst. No one wants to be on a flight with someone next to them or even themselves having the touch of the runs. So I always make sure that my biggest stash of medication in my medicine pouch has to do with gut health. So one thing that I think is great for kids is Pepto-Bismol tablets. These small dissolvable tablets are easy to take, easy to digest, and work very quickly to help settle unsettled tummies. These things are great for kids and adults alike. Just follow the instructions on the box, but I like them because they're small, they're portable, and they work very quickly. So keep in mind, when we're dosing medications for children, the dosing is based on their weight, not their age. So keep the box on hand if it's not something that you give to your child regularly, just so that you make sure you're giving them the safe amount of medication. Another thing that's great for upset tummies are just regular antacids. These are Tums or calcium carbonate. You don't have to buy the name brand, but they work really quickly to help settle nausea, that sour stomach feeling, any sort of upset stomach, or even they're great for heartburn and indigestion. So if you're prone to eating different foods while traveling, most of us are, eating off of our usual routine, sometimes while traveling you're eating later than you normally would, you may be prone to more reflux or heartburn, indigestion, so having some Tums on hand can work wonders for keeping that tummy nice and happy. If Tums aren't strong enough for you, don't hesitate to get something a little stronger over the counter, like Pepcid or famotidine, as it's known generically. This is really great as an H2 blocker to prevent excessive amounts of acid from bubbling up in the stomach. And so this medication can work wonders very quickly, but it's very, very safe to use for short-term periods of time, and again, found over the counter. Now, we've talked a lot about the upper GI system, but what about the lower half? You know, it can happen that when you're traveling, you can get constipated or even end up with some diarrhea. So you want to be prepared for both things. So taking Imodium with you in capsule or pill form can be a really great way to save yourself if you've got a long trip back home. Now keep in mind, oftentimes stomach bugs are usually viral in nature, meaning they don't require antibiotics. And so generally speaking, when you get a stomach bug, you want the virus to leave your gut. You want your system to clear out that nasty virus so you can get better faster. But it's not always possible. You may not always have access to a bathroom. And so in a pinch, Imodium would be okay to take short term. Now, what if you have problems on the other end of the spectrum? Many people complain to me that their gut gets set off when they travel. They end up with constipation or gas or bloating. So don't hesitate to pack a stool softener or even an anti-gas medication like simethicone or Colace. Those medications can help with gas, with bloating, and help keep you regular even while you're on the go. So we talked a little bit about gut health, and it's so important to keep your gut healthy while traveling. One thing I never leave home without is some sort of electrolyte replacement powder. These brands like Hydrant that I have here, or even Liquid IV, are really great. If you get the touch of a stomach bug or you drink a little bit too much while you're on vacation, these are great to mix in with your water and drink several times a day to help replenish your electrolytes and keep you well hydrated. Another thing that's great that I use every day, even when I'm at home and not necessarily on vacation, is something called collagen peptides. There are lots of different brands on the market. One called Vital Proteins is great. This one here happens to be the travel size of something called by Primal Kitchen, but these are really great to add adequate volumes of protein. Also, to be sure, it helps keep your hair, skin, and nails healthy, and it's really good for your digestion. So you may want to pick up these travel size pouches when you travel. So that's it. That's what's in my medicine travel kit. I certainly hope this video has helped you think about some of the things you may want to pack for your next trip and to help you be prepared whether you're going for a short trip or several weeks of travel at a time. Is there anything that you can think of that you pack regularly in your medicine travel kit? If so, please share them in the description box below. Until next time, safe travels.